As the coalition continued to grow, they faced a new challenge. A well-organized group opposing police reform began to mobilize, spreading misinformation and fear. They launched a campaign to undermine the coalition's efforts, framing their movement as a threat to public safety. Marcus and Jenna watched in dismay as the opposition gained traction, organizing rallies and protests against the proposed reforms. It felt like a step backward, and Marcus struggled to maintain his optimism. "We need to counter their narrative," Jenna urged during a coalition meeting. "We have to show the community that our fight for reform is about safety and accountability, not about defunding the police." The coalition began crafting messages that emphasized the importance of community safety and accountability. They organized counter-protests and engaged with residents to share their stories, working tirelessly to combat the misinformation being spread. Despite the challenges they faced, Marcus remained committed to fostering unity within the community. He organized a series of town hall meetings where residents could share their experiences and engage in open dialogue. At one such meeting, a young woman named Maya spoke about her encounters with law enforcement. "I've had both positive and negative experiences," she shared. "I want to believe that we can work together to create change." Her honesty resonated with the audience, and as others began to share their stories, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope. "This is what it's all about," he said. "We're here to listen, to learn, and to grow together as a community." The meetings became a space for vulnerability and understanding, and as conversations deepened, the opposition's narrative began to lose its power. People started to recognize that the coalition's fight for reform was not about defunding the police, but about creating a safer environment for everyone. As the coalition's momentum continued to build, they faced increasing hostility from the opposition. Threats and harassment became more common, both online and in person. One evening, as Marcus returned home, he noticed a group of individuals gathered outside his apartment building, holding signs that read, "Stop the anti-police agenda." Anger surged within him, but he remained determined to stand firm. "Leave my community alone," he shouted, confronting them. "We're fighting for accountability and justice, not against police officers." The confrontation escalated, and Marcus felt the tension in the air. He was reminded of the fears that had haunted him, but he refused to back down. "We are all part of this community," he continued. "We must come together, not tear each other apart." As he spoke, some individuals began to back down, realizing that their hostility was not resonating with the broader community. It was a small victory, but it reinforced his belief in the power of unity. With the opposition growing more vocal, Marcus knew that the coalition needed to mobilize their supporters. They organized a rally to promote unity and solidarity, inviting residents to stand together against the divisive rhetoric. On the day of the rally, the atmosphere was charged with energy. Marcus felt a sense of urgency as he took the stage, ready to address the crowd. "Today we stand together as one community," he declared, his voice ringing out over the throngs of people. "We will not let fear divide us." The crowd erupted in cheers, their unity palpable. As Marcus shared stories of resilience and hope, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just fighting against opposition, they were advocating for a better future for everyone. Throughout the rally, speakers took the stage, sharing their experiences and advocating for reform. Marcus felt a sense of pride as he watched his community come together, their voices rising in a chorus of determination. In the days following the rally, the coalition began to see a shift in the narrative. Local media outlets reported on the event, highlighting the community's commitment to unity and reform. It was a turning point in their fight for justice, a moment that underscored the importance of their advocacy. As the coalition continued to mobilize, they worked on building relationships with local businesses, schools, and organizations, fostering a sense of community ownership over the issue of reform. Marcus felt a renewed sense of optimism as they began to see tangible progress. Detective Ramirez reached out to Marcus, eager to discuss the changes they were implementing within the police department. "We've been listening to the community, and we're committed to making real change," he said. "That's great to hear," Marcus replied, feeling a sense of hope. "Let's keep the lines of communication open. We need to ensure that the community's voice is central to this process." As the coalition continued to grow, they faced a new challenge. A well-organized group opposing police reform began to mobilize, spreading misinformation and fear. They launched a campaign to undermine the coalition's efforts, framing their movement as a threat to public safety. Marcus and Jenna watched in dismay as the opposition gained traction, organizing rallies and protests against the proposed reforms. It felt like a step backward, and Marcus struggled to maintain his optimism. "We need to counter their narrative," Jenna urged during a coalition meeting. "We have to show the community that our fight for reform is about safety and accountability, not about defunding the police." The coalition began crafting messages that emphasized the importance of community safety and accountability. They organized counter-protests and engaged with residents to share their stories, working tirelessly to combat the misinformation being spread. Despite the challenges they faced, Marcus remained committed to fostering unity within the community. He organized a series of town hall meetings where residents could share their experiences and engage in open dialogue. At one such meeting, a young woman named Maya spoke about her encounters with law enforcement. "I've had both positive and negative experiences," she shared. "I want to believe that we can work together to create change." Her honesty resonated with the audience, and as others began to share their stories, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope. "This is what it's all about," he said. "We're here to listen, to learn, and to grow together as a community." The meetings became a space for vulnerability and understanding, and as conversations deepened, the opposition's narrative began to lose its power. People started to recognize that the coalition's fight for reform was not about defunding the police, but about creating a safer environment for everyone. As the coalition's momentum continued to build, they faced increasing hostility from the opposition. Threats and harassment became more common, both online and in person. One evening, as Marcus returned home, he noticed a group of individuals gathered outside his apartment building, holding signs that read, "Stop the anti-police agenda." Anger surged within him, but he remained determined to stand firm. "Leave my community alone," he shouted, confronting them. "We're fighting for accountability and justice, not against police officers." The confrontation escalated, and Marcus felt the tension in the air. He was reminded of the fears that had haunted him, but he refused to back down. "We are all part of this community," he continued. "We must come together, not tear each other apart." As he spoke, some individuals began to back down, realizing that their hostility was not resonating with the broader community. It was a small victory, but it reinforced his belief in the power of unity. With the opposition growing more vocal, Marcus knew that the coalition needed to mobilize their supporters. They organized a rally to promote unity and solidarity, inviting residents to stand together against the divisive rhetoric. On the day of the rally, the atmosphere was charged with energy. Marcus felt a sense of urgency as he took the stage, ready to address the crowd. "Today we stand together as one community," he declared, his voice ringing out over the throngs of people. "We will not let fear divide us." The crowd erupted in cheers, their unity palpable. As Marcus shared stories of resilience and hope, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just fighting against opposition, they were advocating for a better future for everyone. Throughout the rally, speakers took the stage, sharing their experiences and advocating for reform. Marcus felt a sense of pride as he watched his community come together, their voices rising in a chorus of determination. In the days following the rally, the coalition began to see a shift in the narrative. Local media outlets reported on the event, highlighting the community's commitment to unity and reform. It was a turning point in their fight for justice, a moment that underscored the importance of their advocacy. As the coalition continued to mobilize, they worked on building relationships with local businesses, schools, and organizations, fostering a sense of community ownership over the issue of reform. Marcus felt a renewed sense of optimism as they began to see tangible progress. Detective Ramirez reached out to Marcus, eager to discuss the changes they were implementing within the police department. "We've been listening to the community, and we're committed to making real change," he said. "That's great to hear," Marcus replied, feeling a sense of hope. "Let's keep the lines of communication open. We need to ensure that the community's voice is central to this process." As the conference approached, Marcus prepared diligently, wanting to ensure that their message resonated with the audience. He focused on the importance of community engagement, emphasizing that lasting change required collaboration and understanding. On the day of the conference, Marcus stood before a packed auditorium, feeling a mix of anticipation and nerves. He glanced around at the faces in the crowd, advocates, activists, and policymakers, all eager to hear his story. "Thank you for this opportunity," he began, his voice steady. "I stand before you not just as an individual, but as a representative of a community that has faced injustices for far too long." As he shared his experiences, the wrongful arrest, the formation of the coalition, and the ongoing fight for reform, he felt a surge of determination. He wanted to inspire others to take action, to join the movement for justice and accountability. Change is possible, but it requires all of us to engage and advocate for what is right, he urged. Together, we can create a future where every voice is heard, every life valued, and justice truly served. The audience erupted in applause, and Marcus felt a profound sense of connection with those who shared his vision. It was a powerful reminder that they were all part of a larger movement for change. As the conference concluded, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The fight for justice had been filled with challenges, but it had also opened doors to new possibilities. He felt a renewed sense of hope for the future, knowing that their efforts would continue to resonate in communities across the nation. With each passing day, he remained committed to fostering change, advocating for accountability, and amplifying the voices of those who had been marginalized. The journey was ongoing, but he knew that together they could create a legacy of hope and resilience. As he looked out at the crowd, he saw a tapestry of individuals united in their commitment to justice. They were not just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for a future where everyone felt safe and valued, a future where justice would prevail. And with that, Marcus felt a profound sense of purpose wash over him. Together, they would continue to fight, not just for their own lives, but for the countless others who had faced injustice, ensuring that their voices would be heard and their stories would be told. In the months following the national conference, the movement for police reform gained significant traction. Communities across the nation began to adopt the coalition's model, advocating for accountability and transparency in law enforcement. Marcus Adams felt a deep sense of fulfillment watching the ripples of change spread beyond his own community. As he continued to engage with residents, attend rallies, and speak at events, Marcus realized that their work was far from over. While progress had been made, there were still systemic issues that needed to be addressed. He remained committed to advocating for change, ensuring that the voices of those who had been marginalized continued to be heard. One afternoon, Marcus sat in his office, surrounded by stacks of paperwork and case files. He was organizing a community meeting to discuss the progress of the coalition's initiatives when he received a call from Jenna. "Hey, Marcus, I just got off the phone with Detective Ramirez. He wants to meet with us to discuss the next steps in the implementation of the reforms," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "That's great news," Marcus replied, feeling a surge of optimism. "We need to ensure that the training programs are effective and that community feedback is incorporated into the process." "Absolutely. Let's meet with him and discuss how we can support the implementation," Jenna suggested. As they arranged the meeting, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were making progress, but he knew there was still much work to be done to ensure that the reforms were not just symbolic, but had a lasting impact on the community. The following week, Marcus and Jenna met with Detective Ramirez at the police station. As they entered the conference room, they were greeted by Ramirez and a few other officers who had been instrumental in supporting the reforms. "Thank you for coming," Ramirez said, his expression earnest. "I wanted to discuss how we can ensure the training programs are effective and that we're addressing the community's concerns." Marcus nodded, eager to contribute. "We need to make sure that the training emphasizes de-escalation techniques and bias awareness. It's crucial that officers understand the impact of their actions on the community." The officers listened attentively as Marcus and Jenna shared their insights, drawing from the feedback they had received during community meetings. They emphasized the importance of creating a culture of accountability within the department. "We want to see real change," Jenna added. "Community members need to feel safe reporting incidents and know that their concerns will be taken seriously." As the meeting progressed, Marcus felt a sense of hope. The officers seemed genuinely committed to implementing the reforms, and the conversation flowed with a sense of collaboration. I believe we can make a real difference, Ramirez said, his voice steady. But we need the community's support. Together, we can create a system that values transparency and accountability. While progress was being made, Marcus knew that challenges lay ahead. In the wake of their success, opposition began to rise again. Some law enforcement unions pushed back against the reforms, arguing that they undermined officers' ability to do their jobs effectively. As news stories surfaced highlighting the divide, Marcus felt a mix of frustration and determination. "We can't let this derail our efforts," he said during a coalition meeting. "We need to continue advocating for our community and remind everyone that these reforms are about creating a safer environment for all." The coalition strategized ways to counter the opposition's narrative. They organized town hall meetings to educate residents about the importance of the reforms and the benefits of a collaborative approach to law enforcement. During one of the meetings, a community member spoke up, expressing concerns about the potential for crime to increase as a result of the reforms. "What if the police can't respond effectively because of these changes?" she asked. Marcus listened carefully, recognizing the fear behind her question. "I understand your concerns, and I want to assure you that our goal is to enhance public safety," he replied. "The reforms we're advocating for are about building trust and ensuring that officers are equipped to handle situations with compassion and understanding." As the coalition continued to mobilize, they focused on building relationships with community organizations, local businesses, and schools. Marcus believed that fostering connections would help create a united front in advocating for reform. One day he visited a local high school to speak with students about the importance of advocacy and community engagement. "You are the future leaders of this community," he told them. "Your voices matter, and you have the power to create change." As he spoke, he noticed a group of students nodding in agreement. Their enthusiasm was contagious, and Marcus felt inspired by their energy. He encouraged them to get involved in local initiatives and advocate for issues they cared about. "Together, we can make a difference," he emphasized, his voice filled with conviction. After the assembly, several students approached him, eager to learn more about how they could get involved. Marcus felt a sense of pride knowing that he was helping to empower the next generation of advocates. Just as momentum was building, an unforeseen setback occurred. A high-profile case of police misconduct surfaced in a neighboring city, drawing national attention and reigniting debates about police reform. The incident involved an officer who had used excessive force during an arrest, leading to widespread outrage and protests. As news outlets covered the story, the opposition seized the opportunity to undermine the coalition's efforts. Marcus watched in dismay as the backlash intensified. Social media erupted with posts claiming that the coalition's reforms would lead to chaos and increased crime. It felt like a punch to the gut, undermining the progress they had fought so hard to achieve. In response, Marcus called an emergency meeting with the coalition. "We need to address this head-on," he said, his voice firm. "We can't let fear dictate the narrative. We have to remind the community that our fight is for accountability and justice." As they strategized ways to counter the narrative, the coalition organized a series of community forums aimed at addressing the concerns raised by the opposition. They wanted to create a space where residents could express their fears and engage in constructive dialogue. During the forums, Marcus encouraged open conversations about the challenges facing law enforcement and the need for reform. He emphasized the importance of accountability while acknowledging the complexities of the issues at hand. As community members shared their thoughts, Marcus felt a sense of unity begin to blossom. People voiced their frustrations, but they also expressed their desire for a collaborative approach to policing. One resident stood up, her voice steady. "I want to see changes in our police department, but I also want to feel safe in my community. We need to find a balance." "That's exactly what we're advocating for," Marcus replied, feeling encouraged. "We want to create a system that prioritizes public safety while ensuring accountability for those in power." In the wake of the forums, the coalition launched a campaign to amplify their message of accountability and community safety. They produced materials highlighting the benefits of the proposed reforms and shared personal stories from residents who had experienced police misconduct. As the campaign gained momentum, Marcus felt a sense of renewed purpose. He knew that their fight for justice was far from over, but they had the community's support behind them. One evening, as Marcus reviewed campaign materials, He received a call from Detective Ramirez. "I wanted to discuss the recent developments," he said, his tone serious. "The department is committed to addressing the concerns raised by the recent incident." "That's great to hear," Marcus replied, feeling hopeful. "We need to work together to ensure that accountability is prioritized. We'd like to collaborate with the coalition on community outreach initiatives," Ramirez proposed. "It's crucial that we rebuild trust and demonstrate our commitment to reform." As the coalition began collaborating with law enforcement on outreach initiatives, Marcus felt a sense of optimism. They organized community events where officers could engage with residents in informal settings, fostering connections beyond the badge. During one such event, officers participated in a community cookout, sharing food and stories with residents. Marcus watched as the atmosphere shifted, laughter and conversation filling the air. It was a reminder of the importance of human connection in fostering understanding. "Events like this help break down barriers," Marcus said to Jenna, feeling encouraged. "It's all about building relationships and trust." "Absolutely," Jenna replied, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "When people can see officers as individuals, it changes the dynamic. We're making progress." As the weeks went on, the coalition continued to foster relationships within the community. They organized workshops focused on police community engagement, emphasizing the importance of collaboration and accountability. Despite the progress, Marcus knew that challenges were inevitable. One day, as he prepared for a meeting, he received a call from Jenna. "Marcus, I have some concerning news. There's been a rise in violence in the area, and the opposition is using it to push back against our reforms." Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "This is exactly what we feared. How can we address this without undermining the work we've done?" "We need to acknowledge the concerns while emphasizing that our reforms are about accountability and creating a safer community," Jenna replied. "We can't let fear dictate the narrative." Together, they strategized ways to address the rising violence while reaffirming their commitment to reform. They organized community meetings to discuss safety concerns, encouraging residents to share their experiences and work collaboratively to find solutions. At the community meetings, Marcus listened intently as residents expressed their fears about the rising violence. "I'm worried that these changes will lead to more crime," one resident said, her voice filled with concern. "What if the police can't respond effectively?" "We understand your concerns," Marcus replied, feeling the weight of their fears. "But our goal is to create a system that values accountability and public safety. These reforms are not about defunding the police, they're about enhancing community safety." As the discussions continued, community members began to engage in constructive dialogue. They brainstormed ideas for improving safety, emphasizing the importance of collaboration between residents and law enforcement. As the coalition worked to address the community's concerns, they also focused on building resilience. Marcus organized workshops that provided residents with tools to advocate for themselves and navigate challenges they faced. During one workshop, Marcus emphasized the importance of self-advocacy. "You have the power to speak up and demand change," he told the group. "Your voices matter, and together we can create a safer environment for everyone." Residents shared their stories of resilience, offering support to one another and finding strength in their shared experiences. The sense of community grew stronger as they recognized the power of collective action. As the coalition continued to mobilize, they received an invitation to participate in a national conference on community policing. The opportunity felt surreal, a chance to share their story with advocates and policymakers from across the country. When the day of the conference arrived, Marcus felt a mix of excitement and nerves as he prepared to speak. He had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, knowing that their message could inspire others to take action. "Thank you for this opportunity," he began, his voice steady. "I stand before you not just as an individual, but as a representative of a community that has faced injustices for far too long." As he shared their journey, the wrongful arrest, the formation of the coalition, and the ongoing fight for reform, he felt a surge of determination. He wanted to inspire others to take action, to join the movement for justice and accountability. Change is possible, but it requires all of us to engage and advocate for what is right, he urged. Together, we can create a future where every voice is heard, every life valued, and justice truly served. The audience erupted in applause, and Marcus felt a profound sense of connection with those who shared his vision. It was a powerful reminder that they were all part of a larger movement for change. In the aftermath of the conference, the coalition faced increased opposition from those who disagreed with their approach. Negative comments and threats flooded social media, and some community members voiced their frustrations. "Why are we still fighting this battle?" one resident asked during a coalition meeting. "It feels like we're not making any progress." Marcus listened intently, understanding the frustration behind her words. "Change takes time, and while it may feel slow, we're planting seeds for the future," he replied. "We have to remain committed to our goals and continue to advocate for accountability and reform." As they strategized ways to counter the opposition, Marcus emphasized the importance of staying united. "We can't let fear and negativity dictate our actions. We have to focus on the positive changes we're making and remind ourselves of the impact we're having." Despite their efforts, divisions within the community began to deepen. Some residents felt that the coalition's push for reform threatened their safety, while others saw it as a necessary step toward accountability. During a community forum, tensions flared as opposing viewpoints clashed. "We can't trust the police if they're not held accountable," one resident argued, her voice rising in frustration. "But we also can't lose the protection that law enforcement provides." Another resident shot back, fear evident in her eyes. Marcus stepped in, determined to defuse the situation. "I understand that this is a complex issue, and there are valid concerns on both sides. But we have to remember that our goal is the same, to create a safer community for everyone." As the discussion continued, Marcus felt the weight of the divisions pressing down on him. It was clear that their fight for reform was not just about policy change, it was about rebuilding trust within the community. To address the growing divisions, Marcus organized a series of workshops aimed at fostering dialogue and understanding. He invited residents from all backgrounds to come together and share their experiences, emphasizing the importance of empathy. During one workshop, participants engaged in small group discussions, sharing personal stories and experiences with law enforcement. Marcus facilitated the conversation, guiding them toward understanding. "Listening to one another is crucial," he said. "We need to find common ground and recognize that we're all part of this community." As participants shared their stories, a sense of vulnerability filled the room. People began to see one another not as adversaries but as individuals with shared experiences and hopes for a better future. As the workshops continued, Marcus saw a shift in the atmosphere. Participants began to express their concerns while also acknowledging the challenges faced by law enforcement. The dialogue was raw and honest, fostering understanding and empathy. During one session, a police officer shared his perspective on the challenges he faced in the line of duty. "I want to do my job well, but I also recognize the fears that some of you have," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I want to build trust within the community." As the officer spoke, participants listened intently, their expressions softening. It was a reminder that, despite their differences, they were all part of the same community. "Thank you for sharing that," one resident said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's important for us to hear your perspective, just as you need to hear ours." Marcus felt a sense of pride swell within him. They were beginning to bridge the gap, fostering connections that would ultimately lead to a stronger community. As the coalition continued to engage in constructive dialogue, they also focused on pushing for legislative change. Marcus worked closely with lawmakers to draft a new proposal aimed at enhancing police accountability and community oversight. During a meeting with lawmakers, Marcus presented the coalition's vision for reform. "We need to ensure that our police department is held accountable for its actions," he emphasized. "Community oversight is crucial in rebuilding trust." As they discussed the proposal, Marcus felt a sense of urgency. This is about more than just policy. It's about creating a culture of accountability within our law enforcement. The lawmakers listened attentively, and as discussions progressed, it became clear that there was growing support for the proposed reforms. In the weeks that followed, the coalition mobilized community support for the legislative proposal. They organized letter-writing campaigns, urging residents to contact their local representatives and advocate for change. Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope as community members rallied behind the cause. Together we can amplify our voices, he said during a community meeting. We need to show our lawmakers that we are united in our demand for accountability. As the campaign gained momentum, Marcus saw a shift in the narrative. Local media began to highlight the coalition's efforts, shedding light on the importance of accountability and community safety. Just as momentum was building, the coalition faced a setback. During a legislative hearing, an influential lawmaker expressed concerns about the proposed reforms, arguing that they would undermine the effectiveness of law enforcement. The safety of our community is paramount, and we cannot afford to compromise our police force, the lawmaker stated, casting doubt on the coalition's efforts. Marcus felt a wave of frustration wash over him. These reforms are about enhancing public safety, not compromising it, he countered. We need to hold officers accountable for their actions to ensure that everyone feels safe in our community. Despite Marcus's passionate defense, the opposition's influence loomed large, and the proposal faced uncertainty. In the wake of the legislative setback, the coalition rallied its supporters, organizing a large-scale rally to demonstrate community support for the reforms. Marcus felt a renewed sense of determination as they prepared for the event. On the day of the rally, thousands gathered in the city square, their voices ringing out in solidarity. Banners waved and chants filled the air, creating a powerful atmosphere of unity and purpose. Today we stand together to demand accountability and justice, Marcus called out, his voice rising above the crowd. We will not be silenced, and we will not back down. The crowd erupted in cheers, their energy palpable. As Marcus looked out at the sea of faces, he felt a profound sense of hope. They were not alone in this fight. They were part of something much larger. In the days following the rally, the coalition received significant media coverage. News outlets reported on the event, highlighting the community's commitment to accountability and reform. The momentum was building, and Marcus felt a sense of optimism. As they continued to advocate for the legislative proposal, the coalition reached out to community leaders and organizations, emphasizing the importance of unity in their fight for justice. Together we can create change, Marcus urged during coalition meetings. We must remind our lawmakers that our voices matter, and we won't stop until we see accountability. As the legislative session progressed, Marcus and the coalition continued to engage with lawmakers. They organized meetings, providing personal stories and data to demonstrate the need for reform. During one meeting, a senator expressed support for their efforts. I appreciate the work you're doing to engage the community and advocate for change, he said. It's clear that there's a need for accountability within our law enforcement. Marcus felt a surge of hope. Thank you, Senator. Our goal is to create a safer community for everyone, and we need your support to make it happen. As the coalition continued to advocate for the proposed reforms, they saw a gradual shift in the political landscape. More lawmakers began to express support for the legislation, recognizing the importance of addressing systemic issues within law enforcement. Finally, the day arrived for the legislative vote on the proposed reforms. Marcus felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he prepared to attend the session. The outcome of the vote would determine the future of their advocacy efforts. As he entered the chamber, he saw community members gathered, their faces reflecting a mixture of hope and apprehension. Marcus took a deep breath, reminding himself of the importance of this moment. When the vote was called, a palpable tension filled the air. One by one, lawmakers cast their ballots, and Marcus felt his heart race as he waited for the results to be announced. When the vote concluded, the Speaker of the House stepped forward. The proposed reforms have passed, he declared, and the room erupted in applause. Tears of joy filled Marcus's eyes as he embraced Jenna and the coalition members. They had fought for this moment, and it was a testament to the power of community and collective action. In the weeks that followed the legislative victory, the coalition celebrated their achievements. They organized a community gathering to reflect on the journey they had taken and the progress they had made. As they gathered in the park, Marcus felt a sense of gratitude wash over him. The fight for justice had been filled with challenges, but it had also opened doors to new possibilities. During the gathering, Marcus addressed the crowd. Today we celebrate our victory, but we must remember that our work is far from over. We will continue to advocate for accountability and justice, ensuring that our community remains safe for everyone. The crowd erupted in cheers, their unity palpable. They had created a movement that was dedicated to fostering change and building bridges within the community. As Marcus reflected on their journey, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The coalition had made significant strides, but he knew that the fight for justice was ongoing. In the months that followed, they continued to engage with the community, organizing workshops, forums, and events aimed at fostering dialogue and understanding. They remained committed to amplifying the voices of those who had been marginalized, ensuring that their stories were heard. As the coalition continued to grow, Marcus felt a deep sense of pride in the work they had accomplished together. They had built a foundation for lasting change, and he knew that their efforts would resonate for generations to come. In the quiet moments of reflection, Marcus often thought about the journey that had brought him to this point. The challenges he had faced had shaped him, and he felt a profound sense of responsibility to continue advocating for justice. One evening, as he sat on his porch watching the sunset, he received a message from a young woman named Jessica. "I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done. Your story inspired me to get involved in advocacy, and I feel empowered to speak up for change." Marcus smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Thank you, Jessica. Your voice matters, and I'm glad you're taking action." As he engaged with young advocates, Marcus felt a sense of hope for the future. The next generation was ready to carry the torch, and he was committed to supporting them in their efforts. As the coalition continued to mobilize, they faced new challenges and opportunities. The political landscape was shifting, and discussions about police reform were becoming more prominent in national conversations. Marcus remained dedicated to engaging with lawmakers and advocating for change. He participated in panels, sharing the coalition's successes and emphasizing the need for continued advocacy. During one such panel, he shared stories of community members who had been impacted by police misconduct. "These stories are what drive us," he said, his voice steady. "We cannot forget the individuals behind the statistics. Their voices matter, and we must continue to advocate for justice." As the months turned into years, Marcus felt a sense of pride in the progress they had made. The coalition had become a model for other communities, inspiring movements across the nation. However, he also recognized that change takes time. While progress had been made, there were still systemic issues that needed to be addressed. He remained committed to advocating for accountability and transparency within law enforcement. One day, as he prepared for a meeting with local leaders, he reflected on the journey they had taken. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the community that had supported him and for the relationships he had built along the way. As the coalition continued to grow, Marcus issued a call to action to the community. "We cannot rest on our laurels," he said during a community meeting. "We must remain vigilant in our fight for justice and accountability." He encouraged residents to get involved in local initiatives, advocate for change, and hold their elected officials accountable. "Your voices matter, and together we can create a safer community for everyone." As the meeting concluded, Marcus felt a sense of determination in the room. The community was ready to take action, and he was proud to be a part of their journey. As the coalition celebrated its successes, Marcus knew that their work was far from over. The fight for justice and accountability would continue, and he remained committed to advocating for change. As the coalition for police reform continued to grow, Marcus felt a renewed sense of responsibility to nurture the relationships they had built within the community. He recognized that lasting change would require more than just policy reform. It would necessitate a fundamental shift in how residents and law enforcement interacted with one another. To facilitate this, Marcus organized a series of community-building events designed to strengthen ties between residents and officers. These events included neighborhood cleanups, community potlucks, and sports tournaments, opportunities for residents and law enforcement to interact in informal settings. At one such event, a neighborhood barbecue, Marcus found himself flipping burgers alongside officers from the local precinct. The air was filled with laughter and the smell of grilled food, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie. "Thanks for being here, Marcus," one of the officers, Officer Chen, said with a smile. "It's nice to see everyone come together like this." "I agree," Marcus replied, feeling a sense of warmth wash over him. "These events are crucial for building trust and understanding." As families gathered around tables, sharing stories and enjoying the food, Marcus felt a sense of hope. Moments like this were essential for fostering connections and breaking down barriers. However, as the coalition focused on community engagement, they faced new challenges. The national conversation around police reform began to shift, and political tensions rose as different factions emerged, each with their own agendas. One evening, Marcus attended a local political meeting where community leaders and residents gathered to discuss ongoing issues. The atmosphere was tense as opposing views clashed over the future of policing in their city. We need to prioritize public safety over these so-called reforms. One resident argued passionately. We can't afford to lose the protection we have. Marcus listened intently, understanding the fear behind the words. I recognize that safety is paramount, he interjected. But we must also ensure that accountability is at the forefront of our policing practices. We can't have one without the other. The discussion continued, with tensions escalating as opposing sides argued. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. It was clear that their work was far from over, and the path to meaningful change would not be easy. In the wake of the contentious meeting, Marcus reached out to community leaders from both sides, seeking to find common ground. He believed that open dialogue was essential for bridging the divide and fostering understanding. Let's organize a community forum where we can discuss these issues in a constructive manner, he suggested during a meeting with leaders from both factions. We need to create a space where everyone feels heard. The leaders agreed to the idea, recognizing the importance of addressing community concerns directly. Marcus felt a sense of relief. This was a step toward fostering collaboration and understanding. As they planned the forum, Marcus emphasized the need for empathy and respect in their discussions. We may not always agree, but we must approach these conversations with an open mind, he urged. The day of the community forum arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Residents from all walks of life gathered at the local community center, eager to engage in dialogue about policing and reform. As Marcus opened the forum, he felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Thank you all for being here today. This is an opportunity for us to listen to one another and work toward a common goal, creating a safer community for everyone. As residents shared their concerns, Marcus saw a mixture of emotions: fear, anger, hope. He listened intently as individuals recounted their experiences with law enforcement, both positive and negative. Each story added depth to the conversation, illustrating the complexities of the relationship between the community and the police. Thank you for sharing that, one resident said after another had spoken. It's important for us to understand each other's perspectives. As the dialogue continued, Marcus felt a sense of unity beginning to form. While disagreements arose, there was also a shared recognition of the need for accountability and reform. As the forum progressed, Marcus encouraged participants to brainstorm solutions to the issues they faced. Let's focus on actionable steps we can take to create a safer environment, he suggested. A resident named Clara stood up, her voice filled with determination. We need to establish a community advisory board that allows residents to provide feedback on policing practices. This will help hold officers accountable. The idea resonated with the audience, and discussions erupted as attendees offered their thoughts on how to implement the advisory board. Marcus felt a surge of hope. This was the kind of collaborative spirit he had envisioned. I'll work with local leaders to draft a proposal for the advisory board, he said, eager to take action. Together, we can present this to the city council. In the days that followed the forum, Marcus and the coalition began drafting the proposal for the community advisory board. They gathered input from residents and leaders, ensuring that the proposal reflected the community's concerns and aspirations. As they worked on the proposal, Marcus felt a sense of urgency. This was an opportunity to create a mechanism for accountability and transparency within the police department, and he wanted to ensure that it resonated with the community. During a coalition meeting, Marcus presented the draft proposal. This advisory board will allow community members to have a direct voice in shaping policing practices, he explained. We want to ensure that residents feel heard and valued. The coalition members reviewed the proposal, offering feedback and suggestions. As they finalized the document, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope. This was a significant step toward fostering collaboration and rebuilding trust within the community. When the day came to present the proposal to the city council, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. he gathered with coalition members outside the city hall, ready to advocate for their vision of community engagement. As they entered the council chamber, Marcus felt the weight of the moment. The council members listened attentively as he presented the proposal for the Community Advisory Board. "This board will serve as a vital link between the police department and the community," he said, his voice steady. "It will provide residents with an avenue to voice their concerns and contribute to the development of policies that affect their lives." As he spoke, he saw nods of agreement from some council members. "We need to prioritize community input in our policing practices," one council member stated. "This proposal aligns with our commitment to accountability." Despite the supportive comments, not all council members were on board with the proposal. One council member voiced concerns about the potential for the advisory board to undermine law enforcement's authority. "We need to ensure that our officers can do their jobs effectively," he argued. Marcus felt a surge of frustration but remained committed to fostering understanding. The advisory board is not about undermining authority, it's about building trust and accountability. Our goal is to create a system that values public safety while ensuring that officers are held accountable for their actions. The debate continued, and as the council members deliberated, Marcus felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. He knew that the outcome of this vote could shape the future of their community. Finally, the moment of truth arrived as the council members prepared to vote on the proposal. Tension filled the air as they cast their ballots, and Marcus held his breath, waiting for the results to be announced. The Speaker of the Council stood and cleared his throat. "The proposal for the Community Advisory Board has passed," he declared, and the chamber erupted in applause. Marcus felt tears of joy welling in his eyes as he embraced Jenna and the other coalition members. They had fought for this moment, and it was a testament to the power of community and collective action. In the weeks that followed, the coalition celebrated their victory. They organized a community gathering to reflect on their journey and the progress they had made in advocating for police reform. As they gathered in the park, Marcus felt a sense of gratitude wash over him. The fight for justice had been filled with challenges, but it had also opened doors to new possibilities. During the gathering, Marcus addressed the crowd. "Today we celebrate our victory, but we must remember that our work is far from over. We will continue to advocate for accountability and justice, ensuring that our community remains safe for everyone." The crowd erupted in cheers, their unity palpable. They had created a movement that was dedicated to fostering change and building bridges within the community. As the Community Advisory Board was established, Marcus worked closely with members to ensure that it operated effectively. They held regular meetings, allowing residents to voice their concerns and share feedback with law enforcement. During one meeting, a resident named David shared his thoughts on policing practices in the community. "I've had some positive interactions with officers, but I've also witnessed instances of excessive force," he said. "It's important that we hold officers accountable for their actions.